Good evening, guys. Welcome back to the What Life. I feel like we're back in the flow. We're back in the action. I've found my joie de vivre once again. I'm going to run you through this evening's race. We've got a big one. Z Racing Monthly, couple of hundred people. It's the final race, thank the Lord, of the Flattest Fast series. Let me give you some stats on the race to start with. And I've swapped out to the yellow jersey, guys, this evening to try and make myself a little bit more identifiable. So there's tons of people, so a little bit of help. So like I said, flat is fast, Greater London flats. There's absolutely, this is like pancake flat. I feel like this is the flattest one of the flattest fast, other than like Tempest Fugit, actually. That one might have been even flatter, but this one, okay, so it's the longest lead-in in the world, but the ride itself is 17.3 kilometers with just under 100 meters of vert for the race. Power-ups are Draft and Ghost. Now, I'm pretty sure someone uses the Ghost to very good effect at some point in this, and there are a few riders that I think ride off the front. I was so unaware of this, I had no idea what was going on, but that definitely happened during the race. So there you go, guys. It's 17 kilometers with under 100 meters of vert. There's nothing in it. The long lead-in basically adds a bit of the vert and adds a little bit of distance to it. Other than that, it's a hot race, it's fun, and guys, from my personal stats, I think we're back in the game. So obviously I've been making a big hoo-ha about doing a bit of running and cycling at the same time. It's been hard, I will tell you that. I still feel like I'm missing a little bit of sharpness. This race was shorter, so typically the Z Racing, or the Z Monthlies, you're looking for like a 35 or 30 to 40 minute race, sometimes 45. This one was like 23 minutes, I think was what we did, or the front of the race did. So it was a slightly shorter race. It was always going to be a bit faster. And then just to prove that I am kind of back in the game, so to speak, when it comes to turning the pedals, I managed to hold 3.9 watts for this race. I still get my ass kicked coming in, I still get my ass kicked, put it that way, when it comes to the sprint at the finish. But holding 3.9 watts for the 23 minutes that it took us to do this, I'm extremely happy with, considering everything I've got going on in my world, which I will talk you through in a second. And I'll also talk you through how I'm structuring my training, which is, I think, allowing me to do this. Obviously, this has been the first week I've done it, but anyway. So I averaged 294 watts for the 23 mins. So some stats on the race itself. The front of our group held, 23 minutes 13 seconds as a Cat B. That was the winner of our race, 23 minutes 13 seconds. Now the Cat A's did it in 22 minutes and 3 seconds, so they were absolutely licking. So that is like a minute, to put a minute on in a race like this, I think it's quite impressive. This particular moment is one that I was kind of fully aware of and I knew was coming. It's that slight little hill. I thought I'd get an edge on it. I know Mr. Eric Lee is in the house this evening. He's racing hard. He's racing well. He was in the house. I knew he's wearing his Wahoo Nicole with his orange headband in there somewhere in the mix. As I kept seeing him pop up and I knew where he was going and everything. I think this is the point where the guys ride off the front. You can kind of just see them on the mini-map now. There is a tiny little separation of a 3-person group. And I think they basically managed to hold that for the majority of the ride, or at least 2 of them do. As 2 of them, ultimately, Scott and Snowy, I think, end up coming in, 4 or 5 seconds ahead of the rest of the crew. So you can see them just whiz around the corner now. This is my favourite corner because you can put a little kick in before you go in and you see me get out the saddle, and then you just get spun round the corner super nice and it's kind of spits you forward a little bit. So any extra effort going into that corner I think is always well worth it, because then you can just kind of come off. So spin up before you go in, it'll ping you round and it'll send you forward. That's like my little pro tip. Obviously the faster the group, the less of an effect that has, but I still feel like it's worth it. Basically there's points in this race where the pressure comes off a little bit, and this is probably the biggest point that we go through now, where you can see on my power chart at the bottom of the screen, and bear in mind my power chart is kind of reset, so that red is probably set at a 280 FTP, which I think's a little bit low, but I haven't readjusted it since doing my last FTP test, which was a massive failure. But nonetheless, so those little red spikes are all relative to maybe a 280 FTP. But you can see that we come right off in terms of effort, and I dive in to have a quick check-in on Mr. Eric Lee and how he's doing and where he's going and everything like that, which I think is obviously very important. Given that I'm still trying to kind of build back up to get to the point where I can be a legitimate threat to our Canadian buddy. And it will come, because I feel like the legs are coming back. So I'm going to kind of detail now kind of what I'm trying to do to kind of put me back in position to be at least semi-competitive when it comes back to these races. Because I've always really loved these races. I think they're great. I think I hold half a chance of, not being terrible at them, even though I'm trying to kind of do run training and also do a whole bunch of cycle training. So what I'm effectively doing is I want my cycle training to be kind of Monday, Tuesday night. Those are going to be my two big nights. Obviously, Monday's Z Racing monthly night. Tuesday, I have the possibility of Zwift Racing League or doing like a hard workout. So those are my kind of two nights where I want to be riding the bike. So my Sunday is actually quite chilled with a very, very easy cycle and a very, very slow, easy and steady run that is not very long. So that's my Sunday. And then I'll work backwards for you. My Saturday is actually going to be my focus run day. So that's the day I'm doing a 5k park run in the morning, and then I'm doubling that up with a long run in the afternoon. So just to fill anyone in that doesn't really know, I've got a 100-mile ultra marathon coming up in May. So I'm actually trying to build a little bit of run mileage whilst trying to maintain some bike ability. So this is why, I think I did about 90k last week. Maybe, like 85, 90k maybe. So that was running, sorry. So, being able to come back now, and obviously I ran and I cycled yesterday. Like, I am doing a lot. I get it. My sharpness isn't quite there. I'd probably have to take a few days off to be like proper at the sharp end. But still, I feel like putting down 3.9 watts per kg, even if it is only for 23 minutes, is a real positive going into this. And I tell you why it is kind of a little bit more so is because I've put down 3.9 watts and I've maxed out my heart rate at 162. Now, if you've been paying any attention to the channel or following my journey, 162 is way low for me, which basically means from my perspective is that I've put down 3.9 watts under fatigue, under stress, where a lot of that has actually come from basically just neuromuscular ability. It's just being able to turn the legs, rather than my fitness and my cardiovascular, my aerobic capacity. Like, I haven't been able to get into that kind of like hard and fast VO2 area where my heart rate's super high and I'm holding it and just pushing really hard, which is a bit of an issue. But that is obviously as a consequence of fatigue. Now, what I'll say is that a lot of this race for me is on a knife edge. So if it had been another 10 watts higher, like, I probably would have fallen off. And I know that probably sounds silly to say, because everyone's like, well, if it was 15 watts higher, if it was, everyone might have fallen off. But this was a point where it was kicking. The race was kicking, and I basically could only hold, that 4 watts per kg, which is maybe 310 watts for me. And my heart rate is still not very high. So I am training and racing under a level of fatigue, which is not ideal. But guys, please don't shout at me just yet, because this is going to improve. I basically went from last week where I didn't have a program in place, a structured training program, to I was trying to figure it out. And then this week, the week before last, and then last week, I managed to kind of figure out what I want to do and how I'm going to do it. And then I've come into this week and implementing it, and I've managed to hold at least 3.9 watts for the 23 minutes and just about hold on to the group. But what you'll notice is when it gets hard and fast at the end of the race, my legs don't have anything. So whilst my training program, I think, is definitely going to build up my base aerobic capacity, it's going to build up that kind of zone 2 mitochondria capacity, I'm not going to have the sharpness to kick and hold a sustained kick at the end of a race. So, but I'm okay with that, because I'm in what effectively a building phase. I don't think necessarily, unless you are Mr. Eric Lee, that you should be like a gun for hire in the Zwift world every month of the year. I think you should, Eric can ride 4 races a day, hammer them all out, and just do a cracking job. My aim is to build the engine and then kind of peak for a certain time period, which I'm hoping will be kind of the spring. And sorry, Eric, if I've completely I understand you might have a training program. I don't know. We need to catch up, buddy. Call me. So the race was awesome. It was funny. I love the fact we had a load of chat going on. We're getting a really good crew, or it feels like I'm part of a really good community. I'm really enjoying it. It's nice that the legs are turning back over. I've got no idea where these super incredibly fast riders are coming from. You guys are just hitting the watts and holding it, and it's awesome. This was definitely part of the course that I was a struggle on, because basically what's happening is, there are just these little spikes or these little peaks. Please don't shout at me for my watts being a little bit spiky. I'm basically, if you look at my position in the group, it's really consistent. It's pretty consistently in the same place. I don't try and move up the front. I don't get to the point where I'm falling off the back that much. Obviously, knowing coming out of the tunnel, there's going to be a bit of a kick because there's an incline. So I decide to make my move early, knowing that I probably don't have the sustained legs. So I make my move early. I get to a reasonably good position in the group, and I just try and hold it as I know that people will start pushing. And you can kind of see on the right as people's watts just kind of build up. The group moves forward, and we're just cranking out the watts as there's a small little incline. Why do we do that, guys? Why is it that there's even the slightest incline, people just go, wow, turbo, let's go. Never change, guys. Never change. I like that. But yes, we are coming into the last few K. I was genuinely worried that I wasn't going to be able to hold the group. I was kind of having a bit of a panic. As you can see, nice big group. Again, these flat and fast races do not kind of really give. They are, I don't know, is the word forgiving? Are they forgiving? Can you kind of just sit at the back and kind of hide a little bit? I mean, it feels like that's what I was trying to do. But then to look at your watts and realize that you're still putting out a really strong effort is quite disconcerting. This was basically the last breather before knowing that we head into what was going to be the final few turns. There's a few riders off the front now who have kind of walked away with it. Like I said, we're just over a minute behind the category A's, holding 23 flat, or was it? Is that what we did? 23.13 for the winners, and then Eric comes in at 23.21. I come in at 23.23. The training load is too much for me. There's a small incline coming up this last kind of section that I knew was going to be tough for me. The plan was just to hold on. I was never really going to have anything for the kick. So as we kind of move kind of closer and head down the mall, and we come into time, the time when it should come to a kick, my heart rate hitting 162 is kind of pathetic. So yes, there's still a ways to go for me, but this is actually I don't know how to describe it, but to be performing like this and only having a 162 heart rate, I know you guys might look at it and be like, oh, you're really fatigued. But in actual fact, it's actually quite comforting to know that I'm able to do that under this level of fatigue. So yes, I've got no sprint, I've got no sharp end, but we are kind of moving in the right direction. I'm finding my feet with it all. Building the guys. I love the race. It was a lot of fun. 3.8 for 20 minutes, 3.9 for the whole race. Guys, these are my stats. I'm well off my power curve, but all is good. I will see you guys on a race again soon.